Kachaan Secrets by TharealKCloud. Rated T, Teens and Up. Tags: Romantic Fluff, Idiots in Love, My Hero Manga Spoilers. Summary: After Izuki quirks fade, Katsuki was determined to make his boyfriend a hero again, no matter how long it took. 8 years of secretly working on the suit passed, and it was finally complete. But what if all along Izuku had suspected something? Did Izuku know Katsuki was hiding something from him all this year? I miss you already, Izuku murmured softly, watching as Katsuki zips up his suitcase gently and sits it on the floor. This was it. The week that Katsuki would leave for the United States to see Melissa and May and retrieve the impeccable crafted suit they have tirelessly designed for Izuku. It was a suit that had taken years to perfect, and for Katsuki, it marked the accumulation of 8 years of hard work and dedication. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. Of course, Izuku didn't know that. To him, Katsuki was simply heading out on another mission, one of many that came with the unpredictable life of being a hero. He couldn't know that there was so much more behind the strip than it appeared. I haven't left yet, dumbass, Katsuki replied, his voice softening as he sat on the bed beside Izuku, who had laid his head on his shoulder with a quiet sigh. Izuku's voice was tinged with sadness as he spoke, his words almost a whisper. I know. I miss you a lot every time you go on these missions. His fingers absently traced patterns on the fabric of Katsuki's shirt, trying to push away the anxiety settling in his chest. Katsuki's heart softened at the sight of Izuku's downcast expression. He leaned down to plant a gentle kiss on the top of Izuku's head, his lips brushing the soft strand of hair as he murmured reassuringly, I'll be back in 4 days. I'll go by fast, I promise. Izuku nodded. Though his worry lingered, Katsuki could feel it, but he didn't mention it. He was already trying to push his own emotions aside. Tonight, he would leave, and in just 4 days, he'll return. There was a mixture of excitement and unease brewing in his chest. He's been anticipating this moment for years. But now that it was here, a knot of nerve twisted in his stomach. He had seen the progress of the new suit over FaceTime calls with Melissa and May every month, watching the design evolve on screen, but this would be the first time he had seen it in person. The thought of it standing before something so tangible, so real, was far more overwhelming than he expected. Yet, despite the flurry of emotions swirling inside him, he kept his composure. He couldn't afford to let Izuku know how much this meant to him. Not yet. He couldn't risk arousing any suspicions, not when so much was riding on this. 4 days is too long, Izuku said with a frown, his brows furrowing. Why do you even get sent on such far missions? Anyway, it's kind of weird, don't you think? Don't they have heroes over there too? Katsuki smiled, the warmth in his eyes softening as he leaned down to place another gentle kiss on the top of Izuku's head. He reached out, caressing Izuku's hand as he spoke. They do, but guess they just want one of the best heroes in Japan. Izuku shifted, lifting his head from Katsuki's shoulder to see his gaze. His smile was gentle, but his eyes carried sadness that Katsuki couldn't ignore. You are the best hero, Izuku said, his voice filled with sincerity, not a hint of doubt in his words. Katsuki's heart clenched. His throat tightened as the honesty in Izuku's voice. You'll be even better, Izuku, I promise. He leaned in, pressing a soft, lingering kiss to Izuku's lips. The kiss was a promise, a reassurance. Even if unspoken, even if Izuku didn't know what the promise was yet. Katsuki unlocked the trunk of the car. Retrieving his packed suitcase, he set it gently on the ground, his movement deliberate as he stood tall, meeting the gaze of his beloved boyfriend. Be safe, remember to call me the minute you arrive, Izuku said, his eyes locked on Katsuki's. With a simple nod, Katsuki leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to Izuku's forehead, letting the moment linger for just a second longer. Promise, Izuku insisted. I promise you, Izuku. Katsuki's tone was firm, reassuring, his hand brushing over Izuku's cheeks as if to seal the promise. With a soft but resolute click, he closed the trunk. Without another word, Katsuki moved to the driver's side, opening the door for Izuku. Izuku turned back to face him. I love you, he said, the words flowing out easily. Katsuki's heart softened at the simplicity of the words. Fuck. 9 years together, and those words still made Katsuki's stomach turn upside down. Without any hesitation, he responded, his voice barely above a whisper. And I love you just as much. He cupped Izuku's face and leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss. Yes, I know, Izuku, Katsuki said as he was currently standing in one of the buildings of Island Academy, where he was about to see the suit for the first time. That's when Izuku decided to call him, moments before he was showing the suit. Izuku's voice broke through Katsuki's thought as he spoke. It's not fair. He was upset that Katsuki's flight had been delayed by 4 hours. Yes, just 4 hours. Izuku, it's only 4 hours. I'll be there the same day, he explained. Melissa and May entered the room, catching Katsuki's attention, joined swiftly by the legendary hero All Might, who approached with a warm greeting. Yes, that was another thing Izuku did not know. It was that All Might had came with Katsuki to see the suit with him. Oh, Izuku, I have to go now. I'll call you later, okay? Okay. I love you. Stay safe. Love you too. Hanging up, Katsuki followed All Might, who led him further into the faculty. Bakugo, so good to see you, May warmly greeted, with Melissa echoing the sentiment. Bakugo nodded in acknowledgement, clearly anxious to see the suit. He followed both of them into another room, where a case was set on top of a table. Izuku could feel that there was something he didn't know. He knew Katsuki too well, and over the past 8 years, he has sensed an unspoken distance, as though there was a part of Katsuki's life he wasn't part of. About 5 years ago, he had given up, brushing off the feeling and blaming it on paranoia. However, these past few months, the feeling had intensified by a long shot. He had noticed that there were more days when Katsuki seemed anxious, but not in a bad way. More in an excited, almost eager way. It was strange. He also noticed that Katsuki had been talking on the forum more often lately. Whenever Izuku asked, Katsuki would say it was just his mom or Kirishima. And sure it would have been, but Izuku knew. He just knew it wasn't it. And of course, Katsuki had always been hardworking, balancing countless hero shifts and side jobs for publicity. But it had always felt as if he was trying to pay off some debt, working non-stop. It got to the point where Izuku found him going to bed without him and waking up without him. He was starting to feel lonely. And now, out of nowhere, Katsuki had to go to the United States for a mission? A mission in the United States? What the fuck was that about? And why couldn't Izuku get more details? The worst part was seeing Katsuki try to hide his feeling. Izuku knew without a doubt that Katsuki was doing his best to act nonchalant before leaving for this mission. So here was Izuku stepping into Best Genius Agency, determined to find out more. Hello, Deku there. How can I help you? Now, Izuku wasn't really sure what he was looking for, but he was certain there was something he didn't know, and he needed to find out. Hi, Kati. Dynamite left something in his locker that he asked me to pick up, Izuku said with a smile. Oh, sure, go on ahead. You know where it is, right? Yep, thanks, Izuku replied before heading towards the locker room. If Katsuki was hiding something from him, there was no way it would be at their house. Izuku would have found it by now, so his next move was to check other places, starting with Katsuki's locker at the Hero Agency. When he opened the locker door, it was completely empty. Izuku walked towards Katsuki's locker. He had been here multiple times before, so he had no trouble finding it. And of course, he knew the code to it too. When he opened the locker, the first thing that caught his eyes was a picture of himself taped to the door. Izuku smiled, noticing the heart drawn on the photo. Now that he thought about it, Izuku realized he's been here countless times before, yet he had never once looked inside Katsuki's locker. It was strange, especially considering how thoroughly he examined everything else that belonged to Katsuki. It wasn't just one photo, though. There were several. Some were just of him, but others of the two of them together. As he gazed at the display, Izuku felt his chest tighten and tears began to well up. One tear slipped down his cheeks as his eye landed on the photo they took on their first date. Oh, his chest warmed with emotion as he gently placed a hand on the photo. They were so young that day. One of the happiest of his life came rushing back to him. Izuku quickly wiped away his tears, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand. He reached into the locker, pulling out a small bag and carefully opening it. His heart nearly stopped when he saw what it was inside. It was the very first gift he had ever given Katsuki for his birthday as a couple. Intricately designed dynamite card, inspired by the shared All Might card that Katsuki treasured. Izuku had made this one by hand, crafting it with care and signing it himself. He had no idea Katsuki had kept it safe, tucked away in a bag in his locker. As he stared at the card, thought crossed his mind. Does he look at this before every shift? Izuku was soon snapped out of his thought by the sound of the door opening. He jumped at the noise, instantly looking towards the entrance, his heart racing. But as he processed the situation, he quickly calmed himself. There was no reason to be scared. He wasn't doing anything illegal. Maybe a tad unethical, though. Oh, Deku, it's good to see you again. Izuku immediately recognized him. Suzuki Aoi, better known as the flying hero Hatoro. But if it were up to Izuku, he'll call him Eye Looker, or perhaps the hero who wants to steal your boyfriend. Yeah, Izuku wasn't exactly fond of him, especially given his flirtatious with Katsuki. "Hi there, Hotaro," Izuku said flatly, barely looking up from his search as he turned to Katsuki's locker. Hotaro, unfazed, opened his own locker, stealing occasional glances at Izuku, who wasn't finding anything suspicious in Katsuki's locker. Was Katsuki too lazy to come get whatever he forgot himself? Or did he just wear himself out again? Suzuki asked, sly smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. That smirk. Izuku hated. He hated the way Suzuki felt the need to casually drop Katsuki's given name, as if he had any right. Who did this guy think he was? Izuku's irritation flared, but he kept his voice steady. "Forgot something," he replied flatly, refusing to give Suzuki the satisfaction of a reaction. Suzuki slowly walked closer to Izuku, leaning against a nearby locker with his eyes fixed on Izuku's very movement. Izuku could feel his gaze, a weight that only intensified his irritation. "Where is Katsuki anyway?" Suzuki asked, his voice laced with snarky edge. "It's strange for him not to be here. It's been 3 days already." Normally, Izuku would have brushed off the comment and moved on, but something about Shizuku said caught him off guard. 3 days. Katsuki had only been gone for 2. 3 days ago, he'd still been at the agency, or at least that's what he had told Izuku. Izuku turned to face Suzuki, who was now chewing gum in a manner so obnoxious that it made Izuku's stomach churn. 3 days? Asked Izuku, his voice steady but with a hint of disbelief. Suzuki casually blew a bubble before responding. "Yep, last time I saw him was Tuesday. To think of it, he left early that day." Izuku bit his lip, his thought racing as the pieces started to fall into place. 3 things had just came clear. 1, his boyfriend had lied to him about working 3 days ago. 2, Katsuki had lied about the time he left work on Tuesday. And 3, Katsuki hadn't told anybody about the mission. A knot twisted in Izuku's chest. What the fuck was going on? "Deku, you still there?" Suzuki asked, snapping his finger in front of Izuku's face. Izuku blinked, snapping back to reality. Yeah, I just have to go," he replied quickly, hastily putting everything back in Katsuki's locker and shutting it with a soft click. "Oh, okay, but you still didn't..." Before Suzuki could finish his sentence, Izuku had already walked out of the room. Now, Izuku wasn't going to assume everything Suzuki said was true. Just because Izuku hasn't seen Katsuki that day didn't necessarily mean he hasn't worked, but that still left the mystery of Tuesday. Did Katsuki really leave early, or was that a lie? And why didn't Shizuku know where Katsuki was, especially when he's always so eager to stick his nose in everyone's business? Izuku paused in front of Best Gina's door, taking a deep breath to steady himself before knocking. He heard Best Gina's voice call out from inside. A quick, "Come in." Izuku turned the doorknob and stepped into the office, the familiar scent of leather and cologne filling the air. "Deku?" "Hello there. Take a seat. What can I do for you?" Best Genius asked, sitting up straight in his chair, his attention immediately on Izuku. Izuku gave him a warm smile as he moved to sit in one of the chairs in front of the desk. his mind racing with the question he was about to ask. Good afternoon, Best Genius. I apologize for showing up unannounced like this. Izuku began, his voice shaking but stern. But, I was wondering about about Dynamite's work hours this week. He hesitated, trying to phrase the question carefully. Best Genius looked at him with a puzzled expression, clearly unsure of what Izuku was asking. His work schedule? He asked, his tone inquisitive. Izuku nodded, feeling a little flustered. So, for this week, how many hours did Dynamite work? It's just, we were trying to calculate something we want to buy, and he forgot the exact amount of hours he worked this week. Since he's not here, he sent me to ask, to help with calculations. He mentally face-palmed himself. He rambled on so much, he could barely understand his own words, and judging by the confused look on Best Genius' face, he could tell the feeling was mutual. Like, for example, on Wednesday, how many hours did he work? Izuku asked, trying to make himself clearer. Best Genius' face lifted to a more serious expression as he responded. Dynamite didn't work on Wednesday. Izuku felt his heart drop into his stomach. The word hit him like a physical blow. So, Haruto wasn't lying. Right, yeah, my mistake. I meant Tuesday, Izuku said, his voice a little nervous as he tried to recover. Best Genius started typing on his computer, and Izuku assumed he was pulling up Katsuki's work hours. Oh no, it was my mistake, Best Genius said after a moment, glancing back at the screen. He worked on Wednesday from 8 to 6, and on Tuesday from 5 to 1. Izuku exhaled a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Though his mind was still spinning, he was relieved to know that Katsuki hadn't lied to him after all. May I ask you something? Izuku asked, trying to steady his voice. Best Genius gave him a small nod, signaling for him to continue. Why do you send him on such a faraway mission? Izuku asked, his voice a little bit more pointed now. Best Genius' expression shifted subtly. He knew the truth, the real reason behind Katsuki's trip to the United States. In fact, he was one of the first people Katsuki had confided in. But hearing Izuku's question hit him harder than expected. He wasn't prepared for Izuku's directness, his suspicion. They requested him, Best Genius replied simply. They requested him? Izuku echoed, tilting his head slightly. Yes, Best Genius confirmed, nodding. They heard about how incredible the number 4 hero here is in Japan, so they specifically asked for him. Izuku stood there, momentarily at a loss for words. Honestly, he felt like an idiot. Confusion and self-doubt rising inside him, ashamed of even questioning Katsuki in the first place. Had he really doubted him? The feeling that something was off still lingered, despite the reassurance. There was something he couldn't quite grasp, leaving him feeling unsettled. Is there something else I can help you with? Best Genius asked, his tone polite. Izuku quickly shook his head, offering a brief, no thank you, before standing up from the chair and heading towards the door, stepping out of the office. Best Genius watched him leave, exhaling heavily, breathing as the door closed behind him. He immediately grabbed his phone, dialing Katsuki's number. Katsuki answered the phone almost immediately, his voice tinged with anxiety. Did he believe you? Yes, I think so, Best Genius replied. But next time, please give me a heads up. I didn't know he thought you worked on Wednesday. The truth was, while Best Genius had been typing on his computer, he hadn't been checking Katsuki's work hour at all. He's been texting Katsuki to keep him in the loop about what was happening. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't expect my boyfriend to go over there asking for my work hours. Katsuki's voice came through, frustrated. And did you know he was going through my locker? Fucking Haltro texted me that he was there. Gina's brow furrowed. Is Deku getting suspicious? I'm not sure, Katsuki replied, the tension in his voice palpable. But just in case, I might need to make a few calls. Thank you for listening to Kachaan's Secret on the Everything fanfic page. I will be updating part 2 next week Sunday. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content on Podfics. Thank you so much. See you next week.